Ambassador David Chen stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Coalition Council. The ceiling stretched so high above him that he could barely see it. Crystal pillars held up the massive structure, and light seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was beautiful. It was also designed to make visitors feel small. He had been feeling small for 15 years now. "The human delegation will approach," announced Council Speaker Vryn. His voice echoed through the chamber. Vryn was a court, one of the 5 elder species that ran the galaxy. His skin was pale blue and his 3 eyes blinked in sequence, never all at once. Chen walked forward. His shoes made soft sounds on the smooth floor. Behind him, his 2 aides followed. They had learned to walk with their heads slightly bowed. The coalition preferred it that way. "Ambassador Chen," Vryn said, "you have filed complaint number 7042. Please state your concern." 7042. Chen remembered when he used to get angry at that tone, the tone that said human concerns were paperwork. Boring paperwork. Now he just felt tired. "Honored Speaker," Chen began using the formal greeting they insisted upon. "The Zrel Empire has moved military forces into the new Kilimanjaro system. This violates the treaty boundaries established in—" "The Zrel representative will respond," Vryn interrupted. A massive figure stepped forward from the council benches. Commander Thrace of the Zrel Empire stood nearly 8 feet tall. His gray skin was covered in decorative scars that showed his rank. His people were warriors, or at least they called themselves warriors. "The new Kilimanjaro system falls within the disputed zone," Thrace said. His voice was deep and slow. "The humans built their colony knowing this. The treaty is unclear. We are simply clarifying." Chen's jaw tightened. The treaty was not unclear. Everyone knew it, but the coalition courts always ruled in favor of elder species. Always. "The colony has 8,000 human civilians," Chen said, "including 3,000 children. If there is a dispute, let us settle it through proper channels, not with warships." Thrace made a sound that might have been laughter. "The humans are so soft, so worried. We follow all proper war protocols. There will be a formal challenge. They will have time to evacuate or surrender. Everything by the rules." "Your rules," Chen said quietly. "The galaxy's rules," Vryn corrected. "Rules that have kept peace for 10,000 years. Rules that humanity agreed to follow when you joined the coalition. That was true. 15 years ago, when the first alien ship had appeared near Mars, humanity had been terrified and excited. First contact. They were not alone. The universe was full of intelligent life. Then they learned the terms. Earth could join the Galactic Coalition as a probationary member. They would have full membership in maybe 100 years, maybe 200. The elder species would decide when humanity was ready. Until then, Earth had to follow strict rules. Their military could only be so large. Their ships could only be so powerful. They could only settle certain areas of space, and they had to accept guidance from coalition overseers who watched everything they did. The alternative was isolation, being cut off from all galactic trade, technology, and knowledge. Facing the universe alone while other species grew stronger, humanity had chosen to join. They had chosen to play by the rules. Chen remembered the day he was chosen as Earth's first ambassador. He had been so proud, so hopeful. He thought if humanity just proved themselves, showed they could be civilized, things would change. He had filed 7,042 complaints. He had won 3 of them. 3. "The council will review this matter," Vryn said. It was his standard response. "You will be notified of our decision." Next item of business. Chen was dismissed. Just like that. He turned and walked back down the long hall. His aides followed in silence. They knew better than to speak until they were back on their ship. The human embassy ship was small compared to the coalition vessels. It hung in orbit around Council Prime, the coalition's capital world. Inside, Chen finally let himself show emotion. "Damn them," he said, sitting heavily in his chair. "Damn all of them." His senior aide, Maria Santos, handed him a drink. "What do you think will happen?" "Same thing that always happens," Chen said. "They'll review it for weeks. By then, the Zrel will have finished whatever they're planning. The council will issue a statement of concern. Maybe a small fine. And we'll file complaint 7043. "Sir," said his other aide, James Park. The young man looked nervous. "I've been hearing things from the other junior diplomats. The Zrel aren't planning a ritual challenge. They're planning a real attack. Chen looked up sharply. Real attack? What do you mean? I mean no warning. No time to evacuate. They want to send a message. Show that humans are weak. Show that they can take what they want. That would violate every war protocol in the Coalition Charter, Maria said. Yes, James replied. It would. Chen felt something cold in his stomach. The Coalition species had their ritual wars. They were almost like games. Each side would declare their intent. They would meet at a specific time and place. They would fight according to strict rules. When one side reached the agreed-upon casualty limit, they would surrender. Terms would be negotiated. Everyone would go home. It was civilized. It was orderly. It meant that wars happened, but they were controlled, manageable. But Chen had studied history, Earth's history. Humanity knew a different kind of war. They knew what happened when rules disappeared. They knew what desperation and rage could make people do. We need to warn New Kilimanjaro, Chen said, and we need to contact Earth Command, immediately. The message took 3 hours to reach Earth through the quantum communication network. The response came back in 5 hours. General Sarah Okonkwo, head of Earth Defense Forces, appeared on the screen. She was a tall woman with dark skin and gray-streaked hair. Her eyes were hard. Ambassador Chen, she said, your warning has been received. We're sending what ships we can to New Kilimanjaro, but you know our treaty limits. We can't send much, I know, Chen said. But General, if the Zrel really do this, if they attack civilians, Okonkwo's expression didn't change. Then they'll learn something about humanity, something we've been very polite about not teaching them. What do you mean? We've been good guests in this galaxy, Ambassador. We've followed their rules. We've accepted their judgment. We've bent our necks and smiled. Okonkwo leaned forward. But we've also been preparing. Just in case, Chen felt a chill. Preparing what? For the day we stop being polite, Okonkwo said. The day we show them what human war really looks like. The transmission ended. Chen sat in silence. Around him, his aides looked worried. They had all grown up in the era of galactic civilization. They had been taught that humanity's violent past was behind them, that they had evolved beyond it. Chen was older. He remembered the history lessons. The world wars, the desperate struggles, the times when humans fought not by rules but by any means necessary. He hoped it wouldn't come to that. He hoped the Zrel would follow protocol. He hoped the Coalition would intervene, but he had a feeling that hope was about to die. And when it did, the galaxy would learn a terrible lesson. They would learn that humanity's politeness was a choice, a gift, not a weakness, and gifts could be taken back. The attack came 3 days later. Ambassador Chen was asleep when the emergency alert woke him. Red lights flashed in his quarters. The alarm was the worst sound he had ever heard. It meant casualties. It meant death. He ran to the communications center in his sleep clothes. Maria and James were already there, their faces pale as they watched the incoming reports. New Kilimanjaro, Maria said. Her voice shook. The Zrel attacked without warning. They just started firing. The screen showed data feeds from the colony. Chen's hands trembled as he read them. The Zrel fleet had appeared in orbit. No hails, no formal challenge. No time to evacuate. They had simply opened fire on the settlements below. The colony's defense satellites had been destroyed in the first minute. The small garrison of Earth defense ships had tried to fight back. They were outgunned and outnumbered. They died trying to buy time for evacuations that never came. 2,000 people dead in the first hour. Most of them were in the schools and residential centers. The Zrel had targeted those first. Chen felt something break inside him. He had spent 15 years playing by their rules. 15 years believing that civilization meant something, that the galaxy was better than humanity's violent past. He had been wrong. Get me a direct link to the Coalition Council, he said. Right now. I don't care what time it is there. I don't care if I have to wake up every single one of them. It took 20 minutes to establish the connection. Speaker Vrin appeared on the screen looking irritated. His 3 eyes blinked slowly. Ambassador Chen, this is most irregular. The Council has set hours for 2,000 humans are dead, Chen said. His voice was flat, cold. The Zrel Empire attacked without warning. Without ritual challenge. Without following any of your precious protocols. I am formally requesting immediate intervention. Vrin's expression changed slightly. That is concerning. The Council will convene an emergency session. We will investigate these claims and— Claims? Chen's voice rose. I'm sending you the data feeds right now, video sensor logs. Communication records. This isn't a claim. This is a massacre. Over the next 6 hours, Chen presented his case to the emergency council session. He showed them everything. The unprovoked attack, the targeting of civilian centers, the execution of prisoners who tried to surrender. All the things that violated every war protocol the coalition had established. Commander Thrace of the Zrel defended his actions. There was a misunderstanding, he said calmly. Our forces believed they detected hostile intent. They acted in self-defense. Self-defense? Chen could barely speak. Against 3,000 children? Regrettable, Thrace said. But these things happen in war. The humans should not have built in the disputed zone. They were warned. The council deliberated for 3 days. 3 days while the Zrel occupied New Kilimanjaro. 3 days while human survivors hid in the ruins of their homes. Finally, Speaker Vryn announced the judgment. The council finds that the Zrel Empire did indeed violate proper war protocols. This is unacceptable. Therefore, the Zrel Empire is formally censured. They are required to issue an official apology. They will pay reparations of 100,000 credits, and they are restricted from further military action in the disputed zone for 1 full cycle. Chen stared at the screen. That's it? That's your justice. The council has spoken, Vryn said. These are appropriate penalties for— They killed 2,000 people. Chen shouted. They murdered children, and you give them a fine and a timeout? Ambassador Chen, control yourself, Vryn said coldly. The coalition does not operate on revenge. We believe in measured, civilized responses. The Zrel have been punished according to our laws. Chen felt something he had never felt before in this chamber. He felt clarity. Perfect, cold clarity, I see, he said quietly. I understand now. Your laws, your civilization, your 10,000 years of peace. He looked directly at Vryn. You've never faced a real enemy, have you? You've never fought someone who wanted to destroy you. Your wars are games. Your laws are suggestions. You've forgotten what justice actually means. How dare you? Vryn began. Humanity tried your way, Chen continued. We bent our necks. We followed your rules. We trusted your justice. We were wrong. He stood up straight. I am formally announcing Earth's withdrawal from the Coalition Treaty, effective immediately. The council chamber erupted. Multiple species began shouting at once. Vryn called for order. Chen ignored all of it. He turned and walked out. His aides scrambled to follow him. On the ship, Maria grabbed his arm. Sir, do you realize what you just did? We'll be isolated, cut off from all galactic trade and— I know exactly what I did, Chen said. He felt strangely calm. Get me a link to Earth Command. Top priority, and start preparing our departure. We leave within the hour. General Okonkwo appeared on the screen 15 minutes later. Ambassador, she said. I saw your speech to the council. It's already spreading through the quantum net. Good, Chen said. General, Earth needs to respond. Not with diplomacy. Not with complaints. With action. Okonkwo nodded slowly. I've been authorized by Earth government. Full military mobilization. We're done playing by their rules, she paused. Are you sure about this, David? Once we start, there's no going back. Chen thought about the reports from New Kilimanjaro. The bodies of children in schoolrooms. The families who had trusted Earth to protect them. The coalition's so-called justice, I'm sure, he said. Show them what human war looks like. Over the next week, things moved quickly. The coalition demanded Earth return to the negotiating table. They threatened sanctions. They warned of consequences. Earth ignored them all. Instead, massive shipyards that had been hidden in asteroid fields suddenly went active. Ships that didn't match the treaty limits began emerging, thousands of them, fleets that shouldn't exist. The coalition had been very careful to monitor Earth's military. They had inspectors. They had surveillance. They thought they knew exactly what humanity had. They were wrong. For 15 years, humanity had been building in secret. Every diplomatic insult had added another ship to the hidden fleet. Every unjust ruling had funded another weapons program. Every time they had bent their necks and smiled, they had been planning. Admiral James Morrison commanded the First Fleet. He was a veteran of the Lunar Wars, back before First Contact. He was 60 years old and had been preparing for this moment for a decade. Status report. he said from the bridge of the ESS Vengeance. His flagship was twice the size of any coalition battleship. It was also completely off the books. All fleets report ready, sir, his tactical officer said. 17 task forces, 412 ships total, munitions at 100%. All personnel are eager to begin. Morrison looked at the star map. It showed Zrel space, hundreds of systems, thousands of military installations. The Zrel had never felt threatened. They had never had to defend their home territory. That was about to change. Send the message to Earth Command, Morrison said. Operation Reckoning is go. There was no formal declaration of war. No ritual challenge. No time for the Zrel to prepare. That was the point. Humanity had learned something important about the coalition species. They were so used to their civilized wars that they had forgotten how to fight a real one. They announced their intentions. They gave warnings. They fought fair. Humanity was done fighting fair. The first Zrel system didn't even know they were under attack until human ships were already in orbit. No warnings, no demands, just precise, overwhelming force. 17 Zrel military bases were hit simultaneously. Not occupied, not sieged, simply destroyed. Human ships appeared, launched their weapons, and disappeared before the Zrel could even respond. Commander Thrace himself watched from his command center as reports flooded in. This is impossible, he said. They can't be in all these places at once. They don't have enough ships. His tactical officer looked terrified. Sir, our intelligence was wrong. Very wrong. The humans have fleets we never knew about, and they're not following any engagement protocols. They're just attacking. Then we fight back, Thrace roared. Mobilize all military forces. We will crush these upstart humans and teach them their place. But fighting back proved difficult. The humans didn't stay in one place. They didn't give the Zrel time to form defensive lines. They struck fast, hit hard, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. It wasn't war as the Zrel understood it. It was something else. Something brutal and efficient and terrifying. On the third day, Thrace tried to surrender. He sent a formal request for a ceasefire and negotiations. That was how wars ended in the coalition. You surrendered, both sides sat down, and you worked out fair terms. Admiral Morrison's response was short. Your surrender is noted. We'll accept it when we're done. Then the human attacks continued. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the ESS Vengeance and watched Zrel Prime grow larger on the view screen. The Zrel homeworld, the heart of their empire, the place they thought was untouchable. All fleets report in position, sir, his tactical officer said. We have them surrounded, Morrison nodded. 3 months ago, surrounding an enemy homeworld would have been impossible. The Zrel had the second largest fleet in the coalition. They had defensive stations. They had allies. Now their fleet was scattered or destroyed. Their defensive stations were debris, and their allies were staying very quiet. Open a channel to Zrel Command, Morrison said. Commander Thrace appeared on screen. The massive warrior looked smaller somehow, tired. His decorative scars seemed like marks of shame now instead of honor. Admiral Morrison, Thrace said, I have sent 3 formal surrender requests. You have ignored them all. What do you want? I want you to understand something, Morrison replied. When you attacked New Kilimanjaro, you thought you were teaching humanity a lesson. You thought you were showing us our place. You were wrong. We have surrendered. Thrace's voice rose. By all coalition laws, you must accept and begin negotiations. Your laws. Morrison's voice was cold. The same laws that let you murder 2,000 civilians. The same laws that gave you a fine and an apology. We're not following your laws anymore, Commander. Then what are you following? Chaos? Savagery? Justice, Morrison said simply. Real justice. The kind that means actions have consequences. He leaned forward. You're going to stand trial for what you did at New Kilimanjaro. Your officers who carried out the attacks will stand trial. Your government that ordered it will stand trial. Thrace's 3 eyes widened. Trial? That's not how wars end. We surrender, you make demands, we negotiate terms. That's the civilized way. The civilized way got 2,000 humans killed, Morrison said. We tried civilized. Now we're trying effective. He paused. You have 12 hours to turn over all personnel responsible for the New Kilimanjaro attack. If you refuse, we begin orbital bombardment of military targets. Every 12 hours you delay, we expand the target list. You can't do this, Thrace shouted. The coalition will never allow. Morrison cut the transmission. His communications officer looked nervous. "Sir, we're receiving a priority message from the Coalition Council. They're demanding we cease hostilities and withdraw immediately." "Ignore it," Morrison said. "Any other messages?" "Yes, sir. Private channels from the court and Valesian governments. They're asking to open diplomatic talks, separate from the Coalition Council." Morrison smiled. That was interesting. The Coalition was already splitting. Some species saw which way the wind was blowing. "Tell them we'll talk after the Zrel situation is resolved," Morrison said. "No distractions until this is finished." Over the next week, the standoff continued. The Zrel refused to hand over their war criminals. They kept insisting on traditional negotiation. They kept waiting for the Coalition to save them. The Coalition tried. Speaker Vryn assembled a peacekeeping force from 3 member species. 42 ships total. They were sent to Zrel space with orders to enforce a ceasefire. Admiral Morrison watched them approach on his sensors. "Sir, the Coalition fleet is demanding we withdraw," his tactical officer reported. "They say if we don't comply, they'll use force." "How many ships do they have?" Morrison asked. 42, sir." "And how many do we have in this system?" 118, sir." Morrison considered this. The Coalition peacekeepers outnumbered human forces in none of the categories that mattered. They had fewer ships, older technology, and most importantly, they had no idea what they were getting into. "Hail them," Morrison said. "Let me talk to their commander." A Valesian admiral appeared on screen. Admiral Kresh was a veteran of many ritual wars. He had won honors and respect. He looked confident as he addressed Morrison. "Human Admiral," Kresh said, "I am authorized by the Galactic Coalition to enforce an immediate ceasefire. You will withdraw your forces and submit to Council authority. If you refuse, we will be forced to engage you." "Admiral Kresh," Morrison said calmly, "I respect that you're following your orders, but I'm going to give you some information your government probably didn't mention. Do you know why humanity joined the Coalition 15 years ago?" Kresh looked confused by the question. "Because you wanted access to our technology and trade networks." "Wrong," Morrison said. "We joined because we were terrified. When we discovered we weren't alone in the universe, we were afraid. Afraid of you. Afraid of what might happen if we were enemies with advanced civilizations." He paused. "So we bent our necks. We followed your rules. We tried very hard to be good guests in your galaxy. Then why are you doing this?" Kresh demanded. "Because we realized something," Morrison continued. "We were never your guests. We were your pets. And when our people were murdered, you gave us table scraps and called it justice." His expression hardened. "We're done being pets, Admiral. And if you come between us and justice, we'll go through you. Are you threatening the Coalition?" Kresh's voice rose. "You're one species against dozens. You can't possibly—" "Admiral Kresh, I'm going to give you one chance," Morrison interrupted. "Turn your fleet around and go home. Tell your government the humans are serious. Tell them that their ritual war games won't work on us. Do this and you'll live to see your family again." Kresh's skin flushed with anger. "You arrogant?" He cut himself off. "Very well. You have chosen. Coalition fleet, battle formation. Prepare to engage." Morrison sighed. "All ships, weapons free. Disable if possible, destroy if necessary." The battle lasted 11 minutes. The Coalition fleet approached in their traditional formation. Ships spread out evenly, each one broadcasting its intent and waiting for acknowledgement. They expected the humans to form up opposite them, to exchange formal challenges, to fight like civilized people. Instead, human ships used a tactic called swarming. Multiple small ships would attack one large one from different angles. They moved in patterns that made no sense to the Coalition commanders. They used weapons the Coalition had never seen before. Human ships carried missiles that could think for themselves. They deployed drones that didn't need pilots and could pull maneuvers that would kill any living crew. They coordinated their attacks with computer precision that no organic commander could match. But the worst part, the part that terrified the Coalition forces, was the ruthlessness. Human ships didn't posture, didn't taunt, didn't give their enemies time to react. They just fought with cold mechanical efficiency. Admiral Kresh watched in horror as his fleet was systematically torn apart. Every tactic he tried failed. Every strategy he deployed was countered instantly. It was like fighting an enemy that knew what you were going to do before you did it. "Request immediate retreat," he shouted to his remaining ships. "Fall back! Fall back!" Of the 42 ships that entered the battle, 19 made it out. The rest were disabled or destroyed. The human fleet hadn't lost a single vessel. Kresh sat in his damaged command chair, staring at the tactical display. Around him, his crew worked frantically to restore systems. He had fought in 12 ritual wars over his career. He had won 9 of them. He had never experienced anything like this. Communications, he said quietly. Send a message to the Coalition Council. Tell them. He paused, trying to find the words. Tell them we were wrong. Tell them the humans aren't playing our game. They're playing theirs, and we don't know the rules. Back on the ESS Vengeance, Morrison watched the Coalition fleet retreat. He felt no satisfaction, no joy. This was just something that had to be done. Sir, the Zrel are hailing us again, his communications officer said. Commander Thrace wishes to speak with you. Put him through. Thrace looked broken. You have made your point, he said quietly. The Coalition can't protect us. We are alone. What do you want? The people responsible for New Kilimanjaro, Morrison said. All of them. From the soldiers who fired the weapons to the politicians who gave the orders. Real accountability, real justice, and if we give you this, will you leave? Will you stop? Morrison considered the question. On Earth, there was debate about this. Some wanted to occupy Zrel space. Some wanted reparations that would bankrupt their empire. Some wanted revenge. But Morrison remembered what this was supposed to be about. Not conquest, not revenge. Justice. If you hand over the war criminals, if you pay fair reparations to the victims' families, if you accept responsibility for what happened, Morrison said, then yes, we'll leave. We're not here to destroy you. We're here to teach you something important. What's that? Thrace asked. That you can't hide behind rules and call it civilization, Morrison replied. That real civilization means real justice, real accountability, real consequences. He paused. You thought humanity was weak because we tried to be peaceful. You learned that was wrong. Don't make us teach you any more lessons. Thrace was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. We will compile the list. All those responsible. It will take time to... You have 72 hours, Morrison said. After that, we start dismantling your shipyards. The transmission ended. Around the bridge, Morrison's crew worked quietly. They were good people, good soldiers. Many of them had lost friends at New Kilimanjaro. They wanted revenge. The trial began 6 weeks after the Zrel surrendered the war criminals. It took place on a neutral station, one that Earth had built specifically for this purpose. The station hung in empty space belonging to no one, claimed by no government. Ambassador Chen attended as Earth's representative. He had aged in the past months. New lines marked his face, but his eyes were clear and hard. Commander Thrace was the primary defendant. Sitting next to him were 47 other Zrel officers and 12 government officials. They sat in clear containment fields visible to everyone but unable to escape. The Coalition Council had protested the trial. They called it unprecedented, uncivilized, a violation of how wars were supposed to end. Several species threatened sanctions against Earth. Earth had ignored them all. The trial was broadcast across the entire galaxy. Every species could watch. Every citizen could see what humanity called justice. The judge was human, a woman named Judge Patricia Hoffman. She had served on Earth's International Criminal Court before first contact. She understood war crimes. She understood accountability. This trial will follow Earth legal procedures, Judge Hoffman announced. The defendants have been provided legal counsel. They have been given full access to all evidence. They will have every opportunity to defend themselves. She paused, but they will be held accountable for their actions. The prosecution presented their case over 3 days. They showed sensor logs from the attack, communications proving the attack was planned, testimony from Zrel soldiers who had followed the orders, images from New Kilimanjaro that made even hardened soldiers look away. Thrace's defense was simple. We were following orders from our government. We were at war. These things happen in war. The prosecutor, a man named Daniel Ochoa, stood up slowly. He was young for such an important case, but his voice was steady. Commander Thrace, Ochoa said, you claim you were following orders. Did those orders specifically include targeting civilian centers? We targeted military installations, Thrace replied. The main settlement on New Kilimanjaro had 3 military installations. Small ones. Guard posts with fewer than 50 soldiers each. Ochoa brought up a holographic map. Yet your forces fired on 17 different locations. 15 of those were purely civilian, including 3 schools. Intelligence errors, Thrace said. In the chaos of battle— This was not battle, Ochoa interrupted. Battle implies 2 sides fighting. This was a coordinated attack on defenseless civilians. Your ship spent 4 hours in orbit. You had time to verify targets. You had time to allow evacuations. You chose not to. By coalition law, we had the right to— Coalition law? Ochoa's voice rose. The same coalition law that limits ritual wars to specific casualty counts? The same coalition law that requires formal challenges and time for surrender? You didn't follow coalition law, Commander. You broke every rule they had. And when it was convenient for you, you hid behind those same rules. The trial continued for 2 weeks. Each defendant was examined. Each decision was questioned. The galaxy watched, and the galaxy started to understand what human justice meant. It meant looking at what actually happened, not what was supposed to happen. It meant holding people responsible for their choices. It meant that power came with accountability. On the 15th day, Judge Hoffman delivered her verdict. After reviewing all evidence, she said, this court finds Commander Thrace and 23 co-defendants guilty of war crimes. Specifically, the deliberate targeting of civilian populations, murder of non-combatants, and violations of accepted rules of warfare. Thrace stood. I do not accept this verdict. You have no authority over— You lost that argument when you surrendered, Judge Hoffman said calmly. Your choices have consequences, Commander. You will spend the next 30 years in confinement. Your co-defendants will receive sentences appropriate to their level of involvement. The Coalition will never accept this. Thrace shouted. The Coalition, Judge Hoffman replied, can learn to accept it, or they can learn the same lesson you did. The trial's impact spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Species that had watched from the sidelines suddenly had opinions. Some supported Earth's actions, some condemned them. But everyone was talking about it. The court government was one of the first to respond. They sent an ambassador to Earth, a female named Shara. She met with General Okonkwo in Earth's new military headquarters. Your species has changed the galaxy, Shara said. Her blue skin seemed to shift colors as she spoke, a sign of nervousness. In 3 months, you have done what we could not do in 10,000 years. You made accountability real. Is that why you're here? Okonkwo asked. To congratulate us? I'm here to learn, Shara replied. My people have been watching the trial. We've been discussing it. And we realized something. Our civilization was built on a comfortable lie. What lie was that? That we had evolved beyond violence, beyond war, that we were peaceful. Shara's 3 eyes met Okonkwo's gaze. But we weren't peaceful. We were just safe. We never had to face a real threat, so we told ourselves we were civilized. We made rules that let us feel superior while doing nothing about actual injustice. Okonkwo nodded slowly. And now? Now we want to do better. But we don't know how. You humans, you've known real war. Real peace. You've failed and learned from it. We never failed because we never truly tried. Shara leaned forward. Will you teach us? Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. The Valesians sent diplomats. The Kren opened trade negotiations. Even some Zrel factions reached out, wanting to distance themselves from Thrace's actions, but not everyone was happy. The Coalition Council, led by Speaker Vryn, refused to accept the new reality. They passed resolutions condemning Earth. They declared the trial illegal. They demanded humanity return to Coalition authority. When those demands were ignored, they made a decision. They would assemble a true Coalition fleet, not a small peacekeeping force, but a real military armada. They would force humanity back into line. Admiral Morrison received the intelligence report 3 weeks after the trial ended. The Coalition was gathering ships from 7 different species, over 200 vessels, the largest military force assembled in modern galactic history. He brought the report to Earth's War Council. General Okonkwo presided. Around the table sat Earth's military and political leaders. Ambassador Chen attended via remote link from the neutral station. They're not just posturing, Morrison said. This is a real invasion force. They intend to attack Earth directly. How long until they're ready? Asked Prime Minister Abiola. 6 weeks, Morrison replied. They're still coordinating supply lines, still integrating their different species' command structures. But when they move, they'll hit us hard. Can we win? The Prime Minister asked. Morrison considered. Against individual fleets, yes. We proved that. But this is different. This is their full strength all at once. We'll win, but the cost. He trailed off. What's your recommendation, Admiral? We show them what total war really means, Morrison said. Not just military targets. Economic warfare. Cut their trade routes. Shut down their supply lines. Make it impossible for them to sustain a war effort. He paused. And we make it clear that if they attack Earth, we'll respond by targeting their homeworlds. Not their militaries. Their civilians. We make them understand that escalation goes both ways. The room went silent. Ambassador Chen spoke up from his screen. If we do that, we become what we're fighting against, Chen said quietly. We become the monsters who target civilians. The alternative is letting them attack us, Morrison replied. Letting them potentially kill billions of humans because we want to maintain moral superiority. There has to be another way, Chen insisted. General Okonkwo raised her hand. There might be. The coalition isn't unified anymore. Several species are already negotiating with us separately. The court, the Valesians, even some Kryn factions. She looked at Morrison. What if we split them further? How? Morrison asked. By showing them the cost, Okonkwo said. Not the cost to us. The cost to them. We demonstrate what humanity's full military capability looks like. We show them that winning against us would destroy them even if they succeed. We make the price so high that the coalition falls apart before they even attack. Over the next 3 weeks, Earth launched what they called Operation Showcase. It wasn't an attack. It was a demonstration. Human ships appeared in uninhabited systems across coalition space. They destroyed asteroids. They moved moons. They demonstrated weapons that could crack planets. They showed technology the coalition didn't know existed. At the same time, Earth's intelligence network went to work. They leaked information about the true costs of the planned invasion, casualty projections, economic impact, the likelihood that even if the coalition won, several member species would be destroyed in the process. They spread stories about human history, the world wars, the nuclear age, the times when humanity had nearly destroyed itself. They made it clear, humans knew how to fight total war because they had done it. To themselves, the message was simple. You can fight us. You might even win, but the cost will be everything you've built over 10,000 years. Is that really worth it? The coalition began to fracture. The Valesians withdrew their ships first. Then the court. Then smaller species started making excuses. 10 years after the trial, Ambassador David Chen returned to the rebuilt New Kilimanjaro colony. He was older now, his hair completely gray, but he walked with the confidence of someone who had changed history. The colony was different, bigger. The buildings were a mix of human and alien architecture, a symbol of the new relationships Earth had formed. Where there had once been ruins, there were now parks, schools, monuments to those who had died. Chen stood before the memorial wall. 2,000 names were carved into black stone. He placed his hand on the cool surface and closed his eyes. We didn't forget you, he said quietly. We never forgot. Behind him, footsteps approached. He turned to see a Zrel female, much smaller than the warriors like Thrace. She wore simple clothes and carried flowers. Ambassador Chen, she said in accented but clear English. I hoped I would find you here. Do I know you? Chen asked. No, but I know who you are. Everyone does. She gestured to the memorial. I came to pay respects. My uncle was one of the soldiers who attacked this place. He died in prison 3 years ago. Chen tensed slightly. I see. He deserved his punishment, she said quickly. I'm not here to argue that. I'm here because she placed her flowers at the base of the memorial. Because someone should apologize. Someone from my people who actually means it. She looked at the names on the wall. We were taught that we were warriors. That strength meant power. That the weak deserved their fate. Your species taught us something different. You taught us that real strength is having power and choosing justice over revenge. We came close to revenge, Chen admitted. There were moments when we could have destroyed your entire species. But you didn't, she said. And that's why the galaxy is different now. That's why young Zrel like me are learning a different way. She turned to Chen. Thank you, for being strong enough to stop when you had won. She left, her flowers adding color to the memorial. Chen stood there for a long time thinking about the past decade. The galaxy had indeed changed. The coalition still existed, but it was barely recognizable from its old form. New leadership had implemented real reforms, courts that actually enforced their judgments, military interventions that protected the weak rather than the powerful, trade agreements that were fair rather than exploitative. Not everyone was happy about it. Some species resented Earth's influence. Some called humans bullies, warmongers. But no one questioned whether humanity could back up their positions anymore. Earth had formed its own alliance, one based on shared values rather than fear. The court had joined first, then the Belizeans, then a dozen other species. They called it the Accord. It was smaller than the coalition, but stronger in the ways that mattered. General Okonkwo had retired 3 years ago. Admiral Morrison had taken over as head of Earth Defense Forces. The military had scaled back from its wartime peak, but everyone knew the fleets were still there. Still hidden, still ready if needed. Chen's communicator chimed. He answered to see a familiar face, Ambassador Santos, he said with a smile. Maria had taken over as Earth's chief diplomat 5 years ago. What can I do for you? The Accord is having an emergency meeting, Maria said. The Kryn Confederation is asking for help. They're facing a genuine external threat. Not ritual war, not political posturing. A real enemy that wants to destroy them. Chen felt a familiar weight settle on his shoulders. What does Earth recommend? The military wants to intervene. The Kryn have been good allies. But some of the Accord members are nervous. They're worried about setting a precedent, about humanity becoming the galaxy's police force. What do you think? Chen asked. Maria was quiet for a moment. I think we spent 15 years learning to be diplomatic. Then we spent 3 months teaching the galaxy about consequences. And now we spend every day trying to find the balance. She looked directly at the camera. I need your advice, David. You've been there from the beginning. What should we do? Chen looked back at the memorial wall. 2,000 names. 2,000 people who had died because the galaxy chose comfort over justice. Because they had rules but no will to enforce them. We help them, Chen said. But we do it the right way, through the Accord. With clear objectives and limitations. We're not their saviors. We're their allies, he paused. And we make sure everyone understands the difference. The Accord intervention in Kryn space became a model for how the new galaxy operated. It wasn't Earth alone. It was a coalition of species who shared values. They helped the Kryn defeat their enemy, not by overwhelming force, but by showing them how to defend themselves. More importantly, when the crisis was over, they left. They didn't occupy, didn't demand concessions, didn't try to control Kryn policy. They helped and then went home. The old coalition never understood that concept. They had interfered constantly, always guiding younger species, always maintaining control. The Accord proved you could be powerful without being controlling. Back on Earth, Chen attended a ceremony at the United Nations building. It had been expanded to include representatives from all Accord species. The large assembly hall held diplomats from 37 different worlds. The topic of discussion was a proposed Galactic Rights Charter. It would establish basic standards for all sapient beings. Protection from genocide, freedom from slavery, the right to justice. Things the old coalition had assumed existed but never actually enforced. A young human diplomat stood to speak. She was maybe 25 years old, part of the generation that had grown up knowing aliens existed. Some say this charter goes too far, she said, that we're imposing human values on the galaxy. But these aren't human values. They're universal values. Every species here has stories of injustice, of times when the strong hurt the weak and no one stopped them. This charter says those days are over. An old court ambassador stood up. Chen recognized Shara, the first court to visit Earth after the war. She was an elder stateswoman now. The young human is correct, Shara said. These are not human values. They are values we all claimed to hold but never enforced. The humans simply had the courage to make them real. She looked around the room. My people were part of the coalition for 8,000 years. We told ourselves we were civilized. We were cowards. The humans taught us the difference. The charter passed with strong support. It wasn't binding on every species in the galaxy, but Accord members agreed to uphold it, and the Accord was growing. That evening, Chen found himself in a bar near the UN building. It was a mixed establishment, serving drinks for multiple species. At the bar, he recognized Admiral Morrison, now retired but still influential. Admiral, Chen said, sitting down next to him. Celebrating? Thinking, Morrison replied. He was drinking whiskey, an old Earth tradition. You ever wonder if we did the right thing? Back then, Chen knew what he meant. The war, the trial, the demonstration of force that had reshaped the galaxy. Every day, Chen admitted. But then I think about what would have happened if we hadn't. The Zrel would still be attacking colonies. The Coalition would still be issuing meaningless condemnations. Nothing would have changed. We killed a lot of people, Morrison said quietly. Zrel soldiers. Coalition peacekeepers. Maybe they didn't all deserve it? No, Chen agreed. They didn't. War is full of people who don't deserve what happens to them. That's why it should always be the last option. He paused. But sometimes the last option is the only option left. Morrison nodded slowly. I tell myself that. I tell myself we tried everything else first, but I still see their faces sometimes. The Zrel commanders we captured, the Coalition soldiers who died in that 11-minute battle, they were just following orders, just doing what they thought was right. So were we, Chen said. The difference is we were actually right. They sat in silence for a while. Two old men who had changed the galaxy and paid the price for it in sleepless nights and heavy memories. Finally, Morrison raised his glass. To the 2000. May we never forget why we did this. Chen raised his own glass. To the 2000. And to the billions who didn't die because we stopped it from happening again. They drank. Outside, the night sky was full of ships. Human ships, court ships, Velesian ships, all the species of the Accord working together, protecting each other, building something new. It wasn't perfect. There were still conflicts, still disagreements, still species that resented Earth's influence or feared human power. The galaxy was messy and complicated and often frustrating, but it was better. That was the thing Chen reminded himself of on the hard days. It was better than it had been. New Kilimanjaro had been rebuilt. The Zrel had reformed their society. The Coalition had learned to enforce its own laws. Younger species were protected instead of exploited. Justice was real instead of theoretical. None of that would have happened if humanity had kept being polite. If they had kept accepting injustice with a smile. If they had kept bending their necks and hoping things would change on their own. Sometimes, Chen reflected, politeness was just another word for cowardice. Real civilization required more than good manners. It required courage. The courage to stand up when something was wrong. The courage to fight when fighting was necessary. The courage to be disliked if the alternative was being complicit. Humanity had found that courage. And in doing so, they had forced the galaxy to find it too.